everyone, thanks for joining me again. This is Cassie with Cassie Can Craft. I'm doing a voiceover on this video today because I wanted to be able to explain to you what I'm doing and what my thought process is behind this piece, because this is actually going to be combining a couple of different techniques. As you can see here, I'm using a funnel for my pour, and this is a 14 by 14 canvas, if I remember correctly. I've got the names of the colors showing up on the screen as I pour them in for the first time. If I'm duplicating the colors, I don't put the color names there, but what I'm doing is I'm pouring my colors into the funnel kind of in a circular pattern, so that way they're all not kind of on top of each other. You've seen me do this technique in the past. You may have seen other painters do this technique as well. I was not the inventor of it. But after I finish pouring in all the layers of paint that I need, what I'm going to do is spin the canvas out as I let the paint out of it, and then I'm going to swipe over the paint using a cell activator recipe that I've seen many others use. 1 part Australian Floetrol, 1 part acrylic paint to 3 parts Australian Floetrol. Works really amazing. I've only started experimenting with it fairly recently. You've probably seen some of my videos that do involve using it. As you can see, I like to have a lot of layers of color, so I don't pour very much of each color in because I really want to showcase all the colors throughout the entire piece. So that's why you see me doing so many layers, and this being a 14 by 14 canvas does need just a little bit more paint than something smaller. To spin the canvas while slowly letting the paint out of my funnel. And you can see I lift my funnel up and down as I let the paint out so that I can get a little bit of a ripple effect in my piece. Now, 1 funnel's worth was not probably going to be enough for this piece, so I'm going to go ahead and do a second round. I'll speed that up for you. In, let's go ahead and release this paint onto the canvas now. And my paints here are a little bit thicker than I often work with. As you know, I often do Dutch pours, and that does require, look at that funnel, that does require a little bit thinner paints, or really thin paints in comparison to something like this. You want your paints to be just a little bit thicker so that they don't overmix while you're working with them. As you may have noticed, the Arteza paints that I was using, those are kind of iridescent colors, and they are a little bit thinner, and so I can use those right out of the bottle when I'm doing this style pour, and my paints are a little bit thicker. So now I'm torching the bubbles. I want to make sure that I get all of those out before I start the next step of this piece. Okay, I've got my palette knife and my cell activator. Again, that's Amsterdam titanium white mixed 1 part paint to 3 parts Australian Floetrol. Gives me the perfect consistency just with that mixture. And I've put that onto my palette knife, and I kind of use my painting surface to get rid of a little excess paint. Sometimes you'll see there. I don't want too much paint on the knife, but I want enough that I get the reactions that I am looking for. And I'm just going to kind of choose a few places here to do a swipe. Go nice and slow and skim just over the top of the paint, Be careful not to use too much pressure or too little pressure, because then you're going to get not exactly what you're looking for. But you'll see I've got these wonderful cells starting here where I have used the paint and done the swipe. I'm going to go in for a second swipe here. Just trying to make sure I'm happy with where I'm doing it. To do is actually come in and do some swipes with my black cell activator as well, so that we get some different looking contrast. My black cell activator is Amsterdam oxide black mixed in the same ratios with Australian Floetrol. I'll go ahead and speed up the rest of my swipes for you. So that's all the swiping I'm going to do, and now I'm just going to take a palette knife and wreck it up a little bit. I was fairly timid with this piece. I didn't want to ruin it, you know, and I haven't really wrecked a swipe pour before, and so I think in the future I'll be a little bit more bold with what I do. I've been watching Molly a lot recently from Molly's Artistry, and really admiring her boldness when it comes to this particular technique and the wrecking of all the work that you've just done. But I wanted to give it a try, and I think it did add something to this piece. Now I'm just adding a little bit of extra paint to the corners. That way it gives my design something to kind of slide over the top of. If you don't add the extra paint to give your design something to kind of move on, then the edges are gonna roll under, and you might lose some of that design that maybe you really like. Whereas doing it this way, the design will slide over versus roll under. I'm just kind of making sure it's centered on my wheel, and then I'm going to give it a good spin. Not too hard a spin though, because I want to be in control of the design and how much of it comes off the canvas. So you really have to pay close attention. See how I did just a little spin and then I stopped it, because I was really just trying to get rid of that solid color edge that was in one little spot. I really like the way this piece turned out though. It's got a ton of color contrast. The swiped areas look amazing, and I love the gold pops of color in there as well. The iridescent precious gold gives it a nice shimmer. So what I'm doing here is I'm just tilting the canvas a little bit to just play with the composition a little bit more and make sure that it's kind of where I want it, and I couldn't get this using the spinner. And I'm not really trying to get paint off the canvas right now. I don't think I have any excess. I'm just adjusting the composition a little bit. When you do that, be sure that you kind of tilt your canvas back a little bit as well, because you don't want all your paint to kind of be gathered up on one portion of the canvas. You want it to try to be as even as possible. And this is the finished piece here. Stay tuned. I will get you a real close-up look of the wet results. All right, guys, here is the wet results of this piece. I'll take you in so you can see some of the detail. I really love these multicolored cells that I have going on from the swipes that I added. I also really love the areas that I didn't swipe as well. I'm a big fan of these funnel pours just in and of themselves, but I'm really trying to push myself and experiment more and explore more styles of paint. So I hope that you've enjoyed this. I hope that you've learned something, or maybe I hope that I've inspired you to try something new. Leave me a comment, and if you've liked this video, please leave me a like, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Have a great day.